Tera Roberts here with Win Daily, and we're talking NFL player props for Underdog for week 6. And oddly enough, I've got 6 props for you this week focused on 2 teams. But before I dive in, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, check out the description below for a link to sign up to play on Underdog. 100% deposit up to $500. All right, fantastic deal. And let's go ahead and dive in and talk about the props. First off, it is officially Lamar Jackson bounce back week. I am dubbing it the official Lamar Jackson bounce back week because last week was rough. The Ravens receivers dropped a ridiculous amount of passes right through their hands, passes bouncing off of their hands that were literally supposed to be touchdowns. Rashad Bateman, I'm looking at you. Sorry, but I took that one a little bit personally on several teams where I have Lamar Jackson. The frustration, the matchup eventually got to Lamar Jackson as well, and he ended up throwing a pick and fumbling the ball. The Ravens scored just 10 points and lost a critical divisional matchup to the Steelers. It was just a weird situation across the board for guys that are usually very sure-handed. But this week's matchup against the Titans can be the fix that the Ravens need. The Titans have allowed the 8th most passing yards and the 13th most completions. So this is exactly what I want to attack this week. For Lamar, I want the over on his passing yards at 222.5. Oddly enough, Lamar actually did hit the over on that mark last week, even though the performance was dreadful, but it still is on the higher end for him. The most passing yards that he's had this season is 237, so it's pushing it, but I still like it because the offense will run through Lamar Jackson. They will try to establish the run, obviously, with their committee, but I anticipate Lamar's yardage coming through on this, especially with several big plays. I also like the over on Zay Flowers' receiving yards at 55.5. He's eclipsed that mark 4 times this season. He has been incredibly steady, but we're still waiting on that big breakout performance. And this week right here, this matchup, this could be it. And then, obviously, we don't want to leave Mark Andrews out of this. The receiving yards could hit, but I prefer to go a different route with him. I like the route of going targets with him. His prop is currently at 4.5 receptions. The yardage, again, it's a bit shaky. It could go either way, but I feel more confident in the volume in terms of targets and receptions for him versus the yardage. So the over at 4.5 receptions. I also want to include one scorcher pick. Mark Andrews over a half rushing plus receiving touchdown at 1.75 payout. If that hits, it's going to feel good. And I like him to get a touchdown this week. Now, I want to go and focus in on one more team here, the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings face the Bears this week, and while the Bears' offense has definitely picked up, the defense is still on the struggle bus. Last week, they allowed 388 yards to Sam Howell. Seems impossible since no commander actually had more than 77 receiving yards, but I promise it did happen. 388 passing yards. The Vikings are entering brand new territory with no Justin Jefferson. And understandably, there's some skepticism around what Kirk Cousins can bring to the table with no Jefferson. You can't replace a player like Jefferson, but Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, KJ Osborne, they're a very reliable group. Aside from one poor performance against Carolina, Cousins has surpassed 250 yards with ease. Cousins' passing prop this week is set at 250.5 passing yards. I still think the over is very reasonable given the matchup. The number definitely does take into account the loss of Justin Jefferson, so it's very understandable. The loss of those yards is significant, but do not underestimate just how ready Jordan Addison is to step into this wide receiver 1 role within this offense. The Vikings have been bringing Addison along into the fold slowly. I mean, it's been good. It's been aggressive. His involvement's been good, and he's been very efficient. But they haven't given him a massive workload, and it's very understandable. But again, his version of slow is very, very different from other rookies. Addison already has 3 touchdowns on the season, and last week he stepped up with 6 receptions on 9 targets, and including one of those touchdowns. I think that Addison plays a huge role in Cousins being able to hit the over on his passing yards, and that means that I like Addison's receiving yards over at 54.5. that is the last one that wraps things up. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel again, and most importantly, of course, remember to sign up to play on Underdog today. The link is below in the description. 100% deposit match up to $500.